Here we go!
My friends, what's the weirdest splicing hoax in speedrun history? Did Mario Kart 64's Rainbow Road have rails to keep you in bounds? Did you ever get eaten by the Beast in Hazy Maze Cave? Today we have a couple of stories that blend the lines somewhere between urban legend, early internet rumor, Mandela Effect, or just plain total hoax from the Nintendo 64 era. So pour yourself a nice beverage, listen to the crickets chirping away, and let's get into it. But first, here's something that's not a hoax, an invite to Marvel Strike Force's pool party. Ready to make a splash at the coolest pool party in Marvel Strike Force? Well, suit up in your pool party attire and join us to celebrate the release of Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine. It's time to show your style. Indeed, Marvel Strike Force is a mobile squad RPG that allows you to battle with your favorite team of superheroes and supervillains in a fight to save the universe against threats like Doctor Doom and Apocalypse. Your goal is to power up your favorite characters to complete missions, unlock gear and other resources, and beat other players in PvP modes such as Alliance War and Arena. You'll recruit both heroes and villains from across the multiverse, including Iron Man, Wolverine, Venom, and much more. If you're a new player, you can unlock up to 17 total characters within the first 30 days, including Spider-Man, Deadpool, Thor, Captain America, and more favorites. Marvel Strike Force will be celebrating its very first pool party featuring Deadpool, Wolverine, and a whole host of other characters. There will be 4 weeks of events featuring 3 different difficulties so everyone can participate in the fun. There's tons of rewards, gear, and character shards for players to get their hands on. New characters are constantly being released, and this month, be on the lookout for the highly anticipated Illuminati team. You don't want to miss out on their limited time character release events during this month. Welcome to the pool party. And if you're a new player who uses the promo code MUTANT, you'll get 100 Deadpool shards, 100 Wolverine shards, 500 power cores, and 5 premium orbs. So, come on and celebrate the release of Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine by unlocking Deadpool and Wolverine for free using the limited time promo code MUTANT on screen now. You can also unlock Deadpool's new costume, which is inspired by Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine, by playing through this month's pool party event. So let's get started with one of the strangest speedrun cheating hoaxes in all of history, at least as far as I can remember. What happens when someone fakes a speedrun in a convoluted attempt to prove a proof moderator is not discerning enough when it comes to their task of moderating speedrun rankings? Well, this is just what happened one day in January 2017. You see, there was this proof mod for the GoldenEye speedrun rankings by the name of BaseClef93. And for one reason or another, many in the community were getting a little fed up with Clef. You can imagine a speedrun proof mod is kind of like a referee, and so just like in many sports, some competitors and participants can often come to a point where they feel as though the referee is starting to get biased or incompetent, phoning it in, or just disliked for any reason. And after a couple years of faithfully proof moderating the GoldenEye rankings, many runners felt that way about Clef. The quality of his proof moderation was declining, and so many people were looking for a change. But these things are always a bit hard to come by because, unlike a sport with an official governing body, most speedrun communities don't really have any established chain of command or protocol as to how to remove or replace a proof moderator, which has certainly led to its share of issues throughout the years. But in this case, a fellow by the name of Grav, a speedrunner, had an idea, a real brainwave, if you will, as just how to bait BaseClef93 into performing an act of negligence, which would almost certainly result in widespread calls for his removal. And this led to one of the strangest and frankly silliest cheating hoaxes in the history of speedrunning. So Grav had been playing a GoldenEye level, Runway 00 Agent. And Runway 00 Agent had recently gone through a sort of strategy development where we were learning how to throw the grenades further than ever before using a technique called R leaning. And this is when you would hold R and change your strafe from left to right to very quickly alter the position of Bond. And if you threw during this sequence, you could throw the grenades super far, way further than before. And this strategy was still being gamed out, but eventually the record went down to 32 seconds by one Randy B and by Grav himself. But Grav was playing for lower. And because the strategy was still being gamed out, these guys learned an even further R-lean throw, which could result in not just lower than 32 seconds, but something as low as 28 seconds. And this was because you would do the last couple of throws in a completely different fashion than the 32 strategy. Now, this kind of thing, when there's a huge gap in time, especially on a short level, can be hard to compartmentalize for a lot of onlookers. And so Grav was trying to drill this point home by saying that even if he completed a 31 or 30 or 29, he was not going to post the time. And sometimes some people can be a little bit offended when a speedrunner gets a world record, but doesn't post it to the rankings. And I was certainly one of these people, and our proof moderator friend Clef was also one of these people. You know, the only way Grav would get a time of, say, 31 seconds is if something went terribly wrong and he lost 3 seconds on this 28 strategy, which is what he was beginning to use, as opposed to just a super optimized run cutting 1 more second from the 32 strategy. Now, the challenge on Runway 00 is specifically completing these very long grenade throws, which have to land very precisely and blow up these drone sentries, designed to shoot out the plane that you're taking off from in the canon of the stage. And so most runs, you would sort of play through the motions and just not complete the throws, and the run would fail. This kind of scenario makes it incredibly easy to just pretend it completed and splice on an end screen saying it completed to fake a new world record. And so Grav pondered, what if he were to fake getting a 31 second world record, a 28 strategy with a lot of time loss, and then splice on a completion screen and a 31 end screen, and just claim that he was so unhappy with the run that he didn't want to post it, but then Clef, the proof moderator, was the one to post it to the rankings. Surely this would prove Clef's incompetence in a way, or so Grav thought. And there were a couple ways that the run was perhaps going to be presented. At the time, speedrun.com had sort of a loose mirror of the GoldenEye rankings on theelite.net, which wasn't really updated or moderated that heavily. And so one could put the run there perhaps, and maybe Clef would see it there and then post it to the Elite, the main rankings. Or even if Grav were just upload it onto YouTube or Discord, and Clef were to find it that way and post it to the rankings. Either way, this seemed like a foolproof plan to fool Clef into posting a fake run on the rankings, and thus hopefully leading to his removal as proof moderator. The idea sort of being that Grav could say, I was just editing some runs together as sort of a proof of concept, or to see this 31 end screen, what it might look like to give me inspiration, and it wasn't me who posted on the rankings, it was the proof moderator. And so clearly this shows that the proof moderator is no longer fit for this position, and this would allow Grav to sort of keep his hands clean in this whole scenario. You can perhaps see how silly and foolish of a plan this is. And to make it even more silly, and this is really where the plan came apart at the seams, is Grav was too lazy to go through his own session files and find a 31 second run that failed in the manner where this all made sense. Rather, he went to Randy B's YouTube page and found a 31 fail there, which he could use. Now, a few people were in on the joke and hoping that they would accomplish what they wished to accomplish, but Grav felt he at least had to tell Randy B that, I'm going to use one of your runs for this whole ordeal. Now, Randy B was not quite in on the joke, and maybe did not approve with this whole sort of prank, which we can see is incredibly going wrong. Randy B informed the public of this nefarious plot that was going on in the back rooms of the GoldenEye speedrunning community at the time. As a result, this 31-second faked, cheated record never even got shared online, and of course nothing really came of it because, how can you prove that someone cheated or had intent to cheat when it's just sort of conversations and essentially what amounts to backroom jokes? And alas, this is just simply yet another strange chapter in the bizarre history of the GoldenEye speedrun community. Now, perhaps Grav got his just desserts because instead of skipping from 32 to 28 seconds like he had originally hoped for, he actually would complete one of these terrible 31 seconds as an untied world record, and in fact would complete 30 and 29 before going on to finally complete 28, which was his goal time. So perhaps Clef got the last laugh after all. Either way, the notion that Clef was starting to get a little bit bored of his position as a proof moderator did ring true, and so a few months Clef resigned the position so someone else could take over, as usually tends to happen with proof moderators, and everyone lived happily ever after. But this purported Runway 00 Agent 31 spliced, cheated speedrun saga lives on as a very strange and silly hoax when it comes to Nintendo 64 speedrunning. Did Mario Kart 64's Rainbow Road have rails around the track to help keep you in bounds, or no rails? Now, this might sound like a pretty simple question to anyone like you or I, who may have been in Nintendo 64 related communities and made videos or content about these games for the better part of 30 years now. But believe it or not, there are a handful of people who remember playing Rainbow Road on Nintendo 64 without rails, as some kind of strange Mandela Effect, confabulation, or other misremembered childhood memory. So let's take a look at some of these accounts. Here's a post from the r/Mandela Effect subreddit from March 2018. I distinctly remember falling off the Rainbow Road all the time as a kid, but now it has rails. It's the only Mario Kart I've ever played, so I can't be remembering any other versions. Well, alright, that's not very convincing. So here's another post from January 2022. Did N64 Rainbow Road have rails? Apparently it's 100% guardrails now. The lack of rails was a defining characteristic of every Rainbow Road, but N64 took the cake. Just a railless ribbon flowing through a black void. It was merciless, but had the most epic theme music. That map was the devil, but couldn't beat that aesthetic. I grew up playing the most difficult track ever. It was unparalleled. Now it has bumpers on the entire track. What a joke. Well, alright, that's an interesting tale. Here's yet another more detailed post from January 2023 that touches on a couple plausible explanations as to why this memory might have confabulated in the minds of some. But then they go on to disregard this possible explanation and offer some alternatives. I'll read their post as originally shared. Revisiting the no rails Mandela effect from Mario Kart 64's Rainbow Road. I know this has been discussed on here before, but I like to share my own experience and encourage anyone in the community who's willing to help crack this to check their old cartridges. I got Nintendo 64 for Christmas 1996. Super Mario 64 was the only game we had at first, but I recall getting Mario Kart 64 shortly after, which checks out since it was released in North America in February of 1997. I suspect we bought one of the first runs of the first pressing. I don't think much time passed between Christmas and buying Mario Kart 64, especially since my sister and I wanted a multiplayer game and SM64 was only single player. I don't recall any rails on Rainbow Road in our cartridge. True, I did own the game for SNES and we had played that one a lot, but my memories of Mario Kart 64 are very specific. We played that much more throughout the years that followed. I fell off that level all the time. It was a regular occurrence. It's not just that the rails look goofy and out of place to me, it's that I know for certain that falling off the track happened all the time. As others have pointed out, this was sort of the point of Rainbow Road being the final epic challenge of a level. For those who don't know, the Mandela effect in question is that some remember Mario Kart 64 having no rails on the Rainbow Road level, so you fell off very easily and it was a very difficult level. In reality, Mario Kart 64's Rainbow Road absolutely does have rails, so this appears to be a false memory. The debunk is that we are confusing it with the SNES version of Mario Kart, which had no rails on Rainbow Road. I certainly remember both versions having no rails, and others do too. Curiously, I've even read experiences who never played the SNES version and still remember Mario Kart 64's level having no rails. That's a lot harder to explain away. Anyway, here's my request if anyone in the community is willing to help. My hypothesis is that the very first copies of the first run, the one without the Player's Choice medallion on the box cover, had no rails on Rainbow Road. The glitch was noticed shortly after and then corrected. I'm in the paranormal camp, so I suspect this wasn't really a glitch, but a bleed over from another timeline. In any event, I suppose it could have been a glitch, and I'm happy to entertain that idea as well. But if anybody reading this has a cartridge of the first printing of Mario Kart 64, again the one without the million-seller Player's Choice medallion printed on the cover, and the label of the game as well, would you be willing to test it and see if the Rainbow Road levels have rails? My copy is long gone, unfortunately, so I can't check myself. I suspect the glitch was noticed quickly since we know approximately 1 million copies were sold before the million-seller medallion was added to the cover, first as a sticker on the box and then they changed the box graphic. I'm guessing a certain fraction of 1 million first-run cartridges have the no rails glitch, maybe about 10% or possibly even fewer. So if we can find enough people to test their first-run cartridges of Mario Kart 64, I would be fine considering my hypothesis debunked. I'm also wondering if a lot of rental shops like Blockbuster acquired the early first run copies, and that might explain why lots of people recall no rails in the level. If you think about it, that would make sense, since rental shops were probably among the first to place orders for it. I even saw a poll on here where no rails won. Easier to explain if lots of voters rented the game. Anyway, my sincere gratitude and respect to anyone willing to play along. I'm just really convinced that my copy of Mario Kart 64 unequivocally had no rails on Rainbow Road, and I'm surprised this Mandela effect doesn't get more attention. I know I'm not the only one baffled by this. Who knows, maybe we can crack it and have a win for our community. Okay, listen, Rainbow Road on the Nintendo 64 always had rails. The original runs, the Player's Choice, PAL, Japanese, all of them. Now, the Super Nintendo Rainbow Road and the GameCube Double Dash Rainbow Road did not, at least not everywhere, on Double Dash. And, many 90s kids and likewise gamers might have played or at least seen these other editions of Rainbow Road, and so it's very easy to see where this confabulation was made. Some people in the replies of these threads commented that the slide levels in Super Mario 64 were easy to fall off of, with few rails there. Choco Mountain has or does not have rails depending on the difficulty of the stage, so maybe that also factored into this confabulation. There's Rainbow Road in F-Zero X for the N64, which doesn't have rails. And of course, you still can very easily fall off the course on the Nintendo 64 Rainbow Road, even with the rails. Obviously the iconic shortcut, as well as many other areas, it's very easy to fly off the course. I can at least see how these memories confabulated over time, especially if you didn't play and live and work in the N64 realms as much as, say, I have over the years. As one cookie crumb I'll throw to this no rails crowd, I do have a video about a glitch in Pokemon Snap where a tree or an electric switchboard disappears due to some kind of loading glitch, which has never been fully explained in-game. So objects in Nintendo 64 games are known to disappear or glitch away depending on certain memory leaks and other situations. Now, could the entire set of rails on Rainbow Road have glitched away and disappeared for some gamers decades ago? I mean, I've never heard of such an account. There's no video footage of such a thing happening. The people who believe that there were no rails on the course don't have this sort of more plausible memory of it happening. And in fact, even me mentioning this is perhaps giving it too much credibility. I think the reason these sorts of memories fascinate me so much is because, like, obviously I've spent so much time digging into the stories and the players and the lore and the records of these games, trying to document the history of them as correctly as possible. And just to know that people remember them so differently than I do, it's kind of hard to reconcile, and it just makes me wonder about the fallibility of human memory and all that kind of stuff in the world. You know, how shared are these shared experiences if people are remembering something vastly different than you or I? Alas, such is the strange story of those who recall no rails on Mario Kart 64's Rainbow Road. Well, that's all the time we have today for this one. I wanted to get into the question of, did you ever get eaten by the beast in Hazy Maze Cave? You know, become the lunch of the sea dragon. Looking into this, I found a lot of strange tidbits that deserve an even deeper dive, frankly, so we'll have to get into that one next time in something we'll call the Dorrie Discrepancy. So keep your eyes peeled, and hey, thanks for watching this one. Thanks to all the wonderful Speedlore legends and champions for your support of my work on Patreon. Stay true, my friends, and I'll see you in the next stream or video.